I'm Charlie McGrath, the founder of WideAwakeNews.com, host on the Rinse Radio Network, and co-founder of Doomcast. This is a very, very difficult video for me to make tonight. I had a friend ask me today, do I do these in one take? And normally I do. However, tonight I haven't been able to, and it's because I get really worked up when it comes to the topic of militarized police, police brutality, and the direction our country's heading, the Stasi-style police state that we see growing up before us. So I'm just going to talk in terms of my perspective on what's happening in our country. And, and of course I have to start it with the Michael Brown case, this 18-year-old kid who apparently deserved to die. If you listen to Officer Wilson's testimony, he had to kill him. He had to kill him. He was in fear for his life. I find it very interesting and coincidental that this information, this grand jury information of their verdict, as far as will there be an indictment or not, I shouldn't say a verdict, if there'll be an indictment or not, was released within, 48 hours of the president talking about another executive order to grant amnesty to, 5 million illegals in this country. I find it very, very coincidental. But I've learned something over the last several years. We've seen Rob Emanuel talking about never letting a crisis go to waste. And that's exactly what I believe is happening here. Because nobody in the country is talking about amnesty or executive orders tonight or out of control Washington, D.C. They're talking about Ferguson. And a day after this grand jury said there will be no indictment, it isn't just Ferguson. It's L.A., it's Boston, it's Atlanta, it's New York, it's cities across the country where people are out protesting the decision not to indict Officer Wilson. Regardless of what your take is on this, regardless of if you think that he deserved it or not, which is amazing to me that so many people in the independent media community believe that, that this was a just act. He should have killed him, and he did, and he's fine, and let him go. Forget the fact that he's 18. Forget the fact that, his crime of stealing some cigars wasn't known at the time when he reported, known to Officer Wilson. He pulled him over he pulled his rig up to him because they were walking down the middle of the street. That's what he told the investigators at the beginning of this, right after the shooting. Yet last night we were told that he knew he was a strong-arm robbery suspect. Forget all that. Forget about that. Forget about everything that happened up until the last 90 seconds of Michael Brown's life. Right? He does something dumb, which teenagers often do. He got in the face of a cop, and he disputed the cop's authority. He ended up dead 90 seconds later. The story, the trial, Officer Wilson's testimony is he pummeled him 10 times. That's what he told investigators right after the incident. Yet he told the grand jury it was twice. We had establishment neocon media out there talking about how beat up he was, and he had a broken orbital socket in his eye. Yet you can see the pictures all attached to this video of him directly after the incident in the hospital, and I don't see the damage. It looks like he has a scuff on his face that he might have got from shaving. I don't see the pummeling. I don't see the broken eye socket. I don't see somebody who was beaten to the point where he was afraid he was going to be knocked out. And it isn't like Officer Wilson is a slight individual, 6'4", 210 pounds. But the case being what it is, allegedly Michael Brown went for the gun. He shot through the door. Michael Brown ran down the road several hundred feet. And Officer Wilson went in pursuit. He turned around and grunted at him. And Wilson said he had a look of a demon on his face. So he shot him multiple times. Then, allegedly, he stopped and then came at him again in a football stance, rushing at him. So he shot him again. And that was the coup de grace, the last shot being, they don't know for sure what order the shots came in, but they do know the last shot because it went in the top of his head. And went in the top of his head with a .40 caliber hollow point round that, stopped him in his tracks. That killed him instantly. So there's the case before you. I mean, the situation being justified or not certainly warranted a jury hearing the evidence, not just dumping 4,000 pages onto the grand jury, giving them no guidance, and having a prosecutor that seemed more like a defense attorney. But that's not what happened. And then the information was released right at prime rioting time, right after dark in Ferguson, Missouri. And that's exactly what happened. We saw riots. We saw these people burning down their own neighborhood, which makes absolutely no sense to me, but the frustration and the hostility was there, and this violence and carnage ensued. You had some media last night, that were a spirit of condolence for the Brown family. But this same media is here tonight talking about the lack of force that was on the streets last night and how tonight is going to be different. Tonight's going to be different in Ferguson and L.A. and Boston and Atlanta and New York and other cities across the country because the appropriate amount of force was on the streets, meaning they like the fact, they endorse the fact that more and more, up-armored vehicles were in the street, more and more militarized soldier cops were in the street, and 2,200 National Guard are now patrolling the streets of Ferguson to keep the crowd under control. The message is simple. We need more force to have safety. We need more, militarized police to have more safety in this country. Forget about the fact what brought us to this position. Now it's about we need more force. You have to be in a free speech zone. You have to be surrounded by militarized police in order to march. If you do those things and you do what you're told and you're a good little boy, you can speak your mind. If you don't, well, you're going to get carnage. So we need more force. We need more government. We need more law enforcement watching and guiding our every move in order to be a safe nation. Now, I took a lot of heat over a video where I did a few weeks ago about Michael Brown and his grand jury and should he have been shot or not. I'm absolutely shocked that even in the independent media community, we have people that are just biting hook, line, and sinker the race baiting, or he deserved it because he was black and he lived in a gang-ridden neighborhood. But you got to look at this as a whole. It isn't just Michael Brown. It's across the country we see police forces that are militarized and are quick to the trigger. Take the case of James Boyd. For those of you that don't remember or haven't heard of him, I'll attach a video to this that is absolutely shocking. James Boyd was a homeless schizophrenic that was camping in a park in New Mexico. He picked the wrong city. Albuquerque. He picked the wrong city to camp in and to be schizophrenic in and to have a camp knife in his hand because it cost him his life. We had law enforcement show up. He's camping in this park, and they want to evict him out of there, and they end up shooting him because he's standing there, allegedly within 21 feet, the danger zone, with a camp knife in his hand. He was ended up shot dead. One of the shooters, Keith Sandy, law enforcement member for the Albuquerque Police Department, formerly of the New Mexico State Police, but was fired under allegations of fraud charges, went to work immediately after that for the Albuquerque Police, and the Albuquerque Police promised that he wouldn't carry a gun or badge, but he ended up on the Repeat Offenders Project where he carried his gun and his badge and shot James Boyd. Now, it looks like he's going to be another law enforcement individual who's let off scot-free. He's got 19 years of service. They're going to let him buy his last year, his 20th year, so that he can receive 70% compensation or 70% of his original pay for the rest of his life. Now, if they didn't let him give him that extra year, let him buy that extra year, he would have to wait till he's 61 years old, costing him and saving the taxpayers over $1 million. But that's not what happens. Law enforcement takes care of law enforcement. This guy who was had allegations of fraud against him was fired from the state police, went to work for the Albuquerque police, shot James Boyd, is now going to be able to retire with 70% of his pay, and the taxpayers are going to flip the bill for that. Take the case just over this weekend of Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy that looked like a 12-year-old boy. Not, in the case of Michael Brown, 6'5", 300 pounds, big guy, menacing looking, scary looking guy, obviously, for anybody that would think about going up against him. But Tamir Rice is a 12-year-old boy in Cleveland that's hanging out at the park at the Cadell Rec Center, and he's got his airsoft gun with him. A citizen called the police and said, "There's a kid down here, he's waving around a gun, I think it's fake, but he's scaring the crap out of people." So the police show up. Allegedly, they got the message that there was a kid down there waving a gun around. They didn't, they managed to get all that, but they didn't get that it was suspected to be a toy gun. They show up down there. The kid has the gun sitting on the table, grabs it, puts it in his waistband. Probably, as most 12-year-olds would be thinking, they're going to lose their toy to the police. And they tell him to put his hands up, and allegedly he went for the waistband, and they shot him twice. He died the next day. You have officials coming out immediately talking about how it's a rookie cop that did the shooting, talking about how these guys have to make life and death decisions, talking about how these decisions are sometimes in a heated moment and the stress that's put on these officers. But what I found very telling was at the end of the story I'll attach to this video, you have the deputy chief of police coming out saying, quote, "When we give a command, we expect it to be followed." And that's the crux of Tamir Rice's death. That's the crux of, these countless stories we hear of teenagers being tased or even adults, full-on adults, being tased or drug out of their car or beat or brought to the police station and beat down because they didn't follow implicitly the exact orders of law enforcement. This isn't East Germany, right? These aren't supposed to be Stasi-style police that beat you down because you dare to stand up or dare to say something contrary to what you're being told by a law enforcement individual. But that's the way we're being trained. And more importantly, that's the way it seems law enforcement is being trained. That they can do no wrong, they are gods, we will bow at their every whim, and if we don't, then it's time to get violent. Be it pepper spray, tasers, or in some cases the ultimate violence, pulling out their 6 Sauer 40 hollow point rounds and blasting away because they felt, obviously, in every case, they feel like they're in danger. Michael Brown, Officer Wilson, he felt he was looking at a demon who was growling and grunting at him and charging at him like a football player. Had to put 7 rounds into him. The case with Tamir Rice, they felt they were in danger. He was within 10 feet away, and he's going, allegedly, for his waistband. Had to put 2 bullets in him. The case of James Boyd, he's a vagrant, he's schizophrenic, and oh my God, he's got a camp knife in his hand. We're going to unload an AR-15 into him. This isn't isolated, right? It isn't just these 3 cases. It's all the time we hear about this, especially in independent media. But when it's time to be used for a crisis to be used to get some kind of other result, such as we're not going to pay attention to what's going on in Washington, D.C., we see establishment media taking charge and running these stories to absolute infinitum. We see the buildup that they do, dividing white and black, dividing poor and rich, dividing our country. So we're divided, and we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're arguing amongst ourselves. Is this justified? Is this not justified? The fact that we have law enforcement units across this country that are driving around these MRAPs, driving around APCs, that look like they're ready for combat in Afghanistan or Iraq or some other region of the world. They're not being trained for combat across the globe. They're being trained for combat in the streets of the United States. And as I said in a recent video, these incidents are occurring more and more often, and they're becoming less and less public, unless they're supposed to be public, to distract. And as we move forward, as we see Europe, these top 3 out of the top 10 economies in the world, 3 of them are in recession. The prediction is going into 2015, more and more recession, depression is in our future. As we see the continued shrinking of the middle class, as we see more and more people that are going to work every day and earning less, or more and more people that can't find a job, or the millennials coming out of college with more debt now than credit card debt, over $1 trillion, going to work for $20,000, $25,000 a year, loaded up with $50,000, $60,000 in debt just to get that not so great, not so middle class job. We're going to see more and more desperate people, and we're going to be seeing more and more of what the governor of Missouri declared a few days ago, a state of emergency. We're going to see it because things are going to start to get worse and worse in our country, and we need to realize that the buildup of the militarized police isn't to protect us from Al-Qaeda. Drones aren't being purchased by these police departments. MRAPs aren't being purchased or given under Department of Defense 1033 project, given to these police departments in order to protect us against invading forces. This is being done to protect government against we the people. Stories are attached. That's all I got.